Good morning, YouTube. This morning we're going to fly from Edwards Air Force Base to Las Vegas. This will be a direct flight unless we see anything of interest along the way that we might want to venture out and have a look at. I will be doing a GPS flight this morning. That is my intention anyways. The flight to Las Vegas will take us about an hour. And I don't anticipate that we're going to be seeing much that we want to just venture out or stray from the GPS path in order to see. But I mean, that can and could happen, but it will be unlikely this morning. So what we'll do is we'll fly at, I'll pretty much determine an altitude during flight that I need to fly at in order to stay over the mountains. But other than that, during flight we'll look at 132.4 for ATIS for KLAS, which is the Las Vegas or McLaren, something like that, international airport. So we'll type in ATIS and get the runway that they intend for us to, or they want us to land at, and then we'll program it into the G1000 at that point. Mixture, 20% on the throttle. Fuel's looking good. This is a longer flight, so we do want to have a little extra fuel. We probably don't need our tanks to be full, but that's not a problem. Let's go ahead and program in the 132.4 now. We'll switch it over so that when we get close enough, ATIS will start checking in. COM 1 is turned on, so we should get audio for that. I don't think we need 10,500, so for the time being, let's do a ceiling or an altitude of 6,000 feet, unless we think we need to go beyond that. Make this a little bit bigger. It seems small this morning. Yeah, A, already there. So we'll just do the direct flight for the time being. Set this to about 100 nautical miles. This can be made smaller. That works. Alright. Wind, GPS bearing, flight plan. Alright, let's step outside the aircraft. Check. Everything appears to be working. Aileron, yaw, rudder, and relax. All looking good. Now let's find the runway. Ooh, that's cool building there. Hangar. I haven't really explored. Yeah, did I do turn the wrong way? Edwards Air Force Base before. So I feel like I'm just going in circles here. and rather quickly at that, slow it down. And that multifunction display over there, I might have to zoom back in and just have a closer look at the airport. So we'll go straight ahead, it looks like, and then take a little bit of a right, another right, and we'll take off from there. Okay. Excuse me. Big place, Edwards Air Force Base. Excuse me. I got a little bit of a tailwind there. It just sped up on me as I came around that corner. I feel like I'm being pushed along. Extend some flaps. Looks like we'll be taking off in dirt this morning. Range. on with about 700. And then we'll do nav. Follow the GPS. Landing taxi airplane off. Nice aerial view of the base there. It's between 7 and 7:30 right now. Regular flying. Well, let's have a look at what's in front of us. Not much right now, but what I will do is we'll go into the inset map here and we'll select terrain. And then we'll go over here onto the multifunction display and also set terrain. That will give us a little bit of a heads up. And let me zoom in a little bit. I can't really see. Let's do 50 miles. Might be at 6,000 feet before we get locked onto the GPS track to Vegas. Coming through the tower right there. I don't know if these runways are paved in real life, but that's the color that they are. But when I flew in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 yesterday, I did go around in the sun, and it seemed that the runways were paved. They were grayish black or whatever you typically see for a runway. They were not this color. So I am curious as to what color they are in real life. There's a paved runway. I chose runway 23 left for both X-Plane 11 and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And with the aircraft sitting on 23 left, one of them was paved. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 X-Plane 11. Alright, we are 500 below 6,000 feet. Let's have a look at the multifunction display. I'll zoom back out a little bit. See if we need to increase our altitude. It looks like a little bit of red there at some point in our future. Not much, so I'll wait and see once we reach 6,000 whether or not that's still an issue. A lot less of an issue, but it is still an issue. So I'm going to raise to 7,000. Vertical speed will do 500 feet per minute. And the higher we get, the less red we'll be seeing. It should turn yellow and then ultimately become a non-issue altogether. Pan over there. So that is the Las Vegas airport. So our issue is just right there before we get to the airport. I could potentially fly around it or increase my altitude. I'll probably just, if reaching 7,000 isn't enough, if I have to go, higher, I'll just go around it. That way, since we're going to be coming into Las Vegas shortly after that, I don't want to be so high that I have to do circles in order to come down in altitude. Set this back. This run right here is where we want to go. It's partly dirt or ground, partly paved. Yeah, and then there was one to the right of it off there. Adjusting the mixture right now to give us a little more RPMs for faster speed. You see it going 2680. I think I started at 2630. Once it starts going down, I'm going to push it back forwards again until it goes to the higher number. And there's a happy moving. And RPM's right on the verge of the red line there. With that, it looks like our estimated time en route, 1 hour, 1 minute from here. Have a look at the map. See if the map gives me the same information for ATIS that maybe if I guess it's not going to let me see that far over. What about I? So it won't let me see that far out. I can't check until we get closer. I was hoping to pull it up over here. Oh well. So in the event that ATIS doesn't give us any information, I'll just choose a runway, program it into the GPS, and then we'll do the instrument approach. But between 50, maybe 20 miles at the very closest, if we don't hear back from ATIS at that point, I'll choose and program it. And then let's just look at one of the approach templates. I don't know which approach that I'll do, but let's just pull up a left. Let me see what direction we're heading. I don't know that that's the one that I'm going to land at. I would just want to look at a couple different things and see if, I guess I didn't trust what I saw this morning, 0.32.4. I wanted to have another look, check, double check, triple check. Not a whole lot to see, I'm afraid. There will be in Vegas. There'll be plenty to see. It'll be cool to look at. It's a very fun place to fly around. In Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, X-Plane 11 is probably fun to fly around in flight gear as well. Places like Vegas, they tend to put more attention to detail into, and so it makes it that much more interesting when you can fly around places like that. That'll be cool. I don't intend to do a tour of Las Vegas today. Today is just about the flight to get there. And then tomorrow perhaps I'll do the tour of the Las Vegas area. We'll fly around the city and have a look. Yeah, this morning is just getting there. It's going to be over an hour video as it is, with the flight. We still have 54 minutes remaining. Been live streaming for about 27 minutes as it is now. So to tour today would just be a long, boring flight there, and then flying around the city. Nobody's going to watch it an hour just to see the Las Vegas, and then you might not want to watch the hour flight either. But I still find it enjoyable. All I'm doing, really is just staring at the mountains right now. But the act of doing it is what's enjoyable to me. The procedures and the steps involved in getting there, and that's all enjoyable to me. But if you enjoyed as well, if you enjoyed watching it, please give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe. If you want to be made aware of the new upcoming videos, like I live stream every morning, just hit the notification bell. I would schedule the live streams, but typically I don't know what time I'm going to be live streaming. I tend to do it right after I get up. So in me, I don't use an alarm clock. I just wake up in the mornings, between 4 and 5. Sometimes as late as 6, but it's more rare that I sleep till 6. And then in that time frame is when I tend to have the desire to do the live stream. Later in the day, after working, things like that, I start, I want to do other things by then. So in the morning, this seems to be the time when live stream works best for me. I know nobody else may be up around this time unless they're on, they're living somewhere else, the time difference that permits them to be able to. But even after the live stream, these videos are available to watch. They don't get deleted. I go in sometimes and I'll edit them after they've been live streamed. It takes almost a whole day before you can go in and edit it. But it is viewable immediately after the live stream. I like doing the live streams though, particularly for videos that take over an hour, because the file sizes get so large. And though I do have plenty of storage space, handling those large files, waiting for them to upload this and that, it's a whole lot easier just to live stream. Then when you're done, it's already on YouTube. You don't have to upload it. The trouble with that is if you did want to go back in later and edit the video and take out portions or delete portions or add music, or add voiceovers, you would have to download from YouTube. And when it's on YouTube, it's compressed. So if you don't want a compressed format, you've got to go ahead and save it to your computer and not live stream. So the live stream does have some advantages as well as the disadvantages. But for me, mostly because I'm not worried about editing it or trying to hide my mistakes, permitting everyone to see my flawed character as I try to manipulate the equipment in the aircraft or do certain things, and I seem to be, going, what am I doing wrong? I don't try to edit all that out. I don't mind it being there because that's how it is in real life. There's no sense in hiding mistakes or errors. It's also a reminder for me, when I go back and I watch my own videos, which I do, part of the reason why I like having them on YouTube is so that I can review them myself and look at them. I'll sit there. Last night I watched an hour-long video that I did just to remember it, and it's kind of neat to see my errors as I make them, and it gives me another perspective, so I can say, hey, maybe I can avoid this error in the future. I did this, and this wrong. We need to try not to do that and improve. Let's have a look out the window. I know there isn't going to be a whole lot to see. The mountains being the most interesting thing at this point. Or the tail section of the aircraft, if you're interested in that. It's just kind of cool to be able to do in the back seat of the Cessna while you're flying. Nobody's up there flying it. The pilot's gone. Oh wait, I'm pilot. I think these lights can be turned on and off. Yeah, dimmed. They are on. I'm dimming them as I'm moving them like this. I don't know if you can see that or not. They're not very bright to begin with, so it's hard to tell when I dim them. Anyways, it is fun to try to, what would it be like if I opened the door right now while we're flying? Does it work or does it lock? Yeah, it works. I saw a YouTube video a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months, that a friend of mine sent to me of, now it's not closing. Oh, maybe I need to get the arrow pointed in the other direction. There we go. Of a YouTuber that was flying in a real life aircraft and throwing toilet paper out the window, and then flying towards the toilet paper and cutting it with his wing. And he did several rolls like that. That was interesting. Not sure I like the idea of throwing toilet paper out of an aircraft window, but nevertheless, it was still an interesting video to see that he could go back and intercept it and then cut the toilet paper several times over before the roll ran out. Yeah, I didn't know what would happen if I opened the door during flight. I kind of wanted to see, and we're in the middle of nowhere, so if I did have to emergency land, well, that wouldn't have been too much of an issue, probably. But I didn't think at this altitude that opening the door was going to matter that much, so I went ahead and did it. I don't know if the co-pilot side can open or not. Looks like. Yeah, kind of cool. Let me inch over there. Like we're stepping outside. I wonder if I can go out. Now that seems to be about as far as I can go. I wonder if I can fall out. Now that would be interesting, to actually fall out of the aircraft. It's almost as though I'm just standing on the wheel here. I'm really pushing it down. I'm getting the real life fear and sense that I could fall to the ground. And I don't want these videos to end with me not being able to fly the aircraft to Las Vegas. But I don't mind hanging out here for a few minutes if y'all are enjoying this too. Kind of cool. I've never done this before. I guess I'm bored. Tell you what, I'll do a quick view here. That way we can usually come back, but I can usually pop back in here and then we can come back here. And I might eventually go out on the other side too, outside this door. And well, let's open it up and we'll just have it ready. Maybe we'll just do it now. I wonder if I do fall. I probably will not. But if I did fall, if I could do a quick view and still get back into the aircraft. But that's a pretty interesting picture right there. I think I'm going to take a screenshot of that. That's just kind of weird being at 7,000 feet and then looking in at the aircraft. Yeah, I really like that screenshot. I've got a ton of screenshots of the flying, doing different things. I've got some interesting ones too. I wish I could just, maybe I can. Maybe I can make a video out of some of the screenshots that I have. More interesting ones. I've got some cool, fun to look at screenshots. I can't zoom out. Really, I can't do that. The only way I can do that is to try to inch my way over. But if I can do this, then it's like having a walk. You guys could have gotten out on the aircraft, I mean the aircraft carrier rather, and had a look around. See, I don't know how far away from the aircraft I can go. Like, I've never done this. Are you looking at? No. That's pretty cool. I got the wing and the top of it. Another screenshot. Alright, I'm gonna see how far out relative to this wing I can go. Now this is very unreal. I mean, I guess somebody might venture out onto the wheel in real life and then maybe parachute. Now it's so unrealistic, it's almost not worth taking a screenshot. Because I could do an external view, an external camera, and have the same view. Zoom in and have the same view that I have now. Go back to refocus. Back in. I still have the 50 years up here. Just kind of looking to see how the flaps are attached. I wonder if that's that final look at a real present or something like that. When I close the door here, I should still have a quick view out there, just to look back. guess when it's cold and rainy, you always hop out here and have a really nice close view of whether or not the aircraft is icing. Another 40 minutes or so. We're arriving in Las Vegas. We're 90 nautical miles away. I'm sort of expecting ATIS to check in within the 50-mile range. I don't think I can get out of the aircraft like if I use my arrow over keys. Like I'm up against the door. So the door had to be open for me to be able to exit. I didn't know I could exit like that. I guess I never tried it until this morning. Now, in flight gear, you can choose walker. You select that from the menu, and then you can walk around your aircraft. You can walk away from it, clearing off the glasses. That's pretty cool. And then there's ground services that you do in flight gear. So you can have battery, whatever charges, or you plug. It's sort of like a battery tender, but it's a big machine that sits outside your aircraft. You plug your aircraft into it, and then you can have the fuel truck there to refuel. You get a ladder for, I don't know if it's for getting out of the aircraft or what you would need a ladder around the Cessna for, unless you're going to do something on the wing or on the top of the Cessna, but you can put a ladder out there. You can put chocks in front of the wheels. Yeah, it's a lot of things that you can do in the aircraft. So you can do real world checks before you even get in the aircraft and fly in flight gear. And there might be a plug-in or something like that for X-Plane that would allow someone to do that. I have not sought out all the capabilities or tried out all of the plugins. I sort of have to take a notion that I want to do that before I seek those things out. The only plugin that I have right now is for the GTN 750. And I could probably bring it up. I have the 650 too, but it's the 750 that's the big one. Oh, I guess it won't. I thought it might show it to me. Maybe I have the window hidden. Reset window. There it is. So I could use this to I'm not the expert at it yet, but let's do charts and then do approaches, airport info apps. I was hoping it would allow me to select an airport. Baker, California. Okay, so KLAS. There we go. Now let's see. I don't know that this one gives us the ATIS. So let's do approach. Approach usually has the ATIS in the upper left corner. Oops. I need to move the window like that. 132.4. Everything we're looking at matches up with everything we know already. That's good. Now, I don't think that my programming the flight in the G1000 shows up in here. I'd have to reprogram it. It shows us our direction. I guess we can zoom out as well. Las Vegas, I saw it right there. let's hide the window. Well, I made it go away all the way. But I was going to pull up the G10 650 as well. Because you can look up the charts in there too, I think, and still see them. Messages get annoying. Let's do that. Let's do info on the airport and then select KLAS. And it's like, didn't I just get a message? Okay, so KLAS, and then we'll do frequency. 2.4 back here. Let's do procedures because we want to look at an approach for, say, the 01 left. We can look at what initial fixes are there. Yeah, but essentially what we want to know is the ATIS. So in the event that I can't get the information from the map, and I can get it from the map, it's just I gotta wait till I get closer to Las Vegas. But if I didn't have ATIS information, if I hadn't looked it up on SkyVector in advance, I wouldn't know the 134.2, so or 132.4, so we would have to get that information somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, so details, ATIS 132.4. So we've got it now, we got it from the map. So we've got it from several different sources. But I had it from SkyVector initially, but I'm just demonstrating that I could get it from the GTN 750 and the map within X-Plane 11. And I guess because I launched the GTN 750, it deleted my flight plan here, so I must go back in and re-add it. It's not including. Let me try this one. Let's just do the second page. There we go. That's better. Now that we have it, let's do menu, take leg. And it's flying over to that line. Now I don't see that it's giving us our track. It looks like it's flying something here, but on this one I don't see anything. Let me back out. And just to be certain, I'll hit nav again so that we know we're on it. are still aimed right for these mountains here, which we will hit if I don't go in. So I will change my heading to head right there through them. Not long after that, after we go by those, actually what I'm bypassing right now is probably these. They're just yellow. But I am going to go around them, and then once I'm over here, I'll probably approach right like this. I'll activate the leg again from here, and then it will be an approach that will avoid these altogether as well. At least that's the plan. So from a visual perspective, once I'm right here in this little valley, between this mountain range here and this aspect of it over here, once I can fly in between those, then I will activate the leg back to Las Vegas Airport. So we've got two aircraft here, one here and one here. I do not see them. They should be one over here on this side of the mountain perhaps, and one over here. I don't know what altitude they're at. We can go outside the aircraft and see. There might be helicopters. There might be at 45,000 feet. Not visible yet. I'm not seeing them whatsoever. So one is actually out here somewhere, and the other one is to the left over here. And they're a lot harder to see in the daytime. And then if they're a helicopter, they're usually flying really low, close to the ground. They're really difficult. I mean, the challenge is flying a spot. And then if they're a really high altitude, they're not so strong. But I don't see any aircraft other than what's on the GPS. They're not close to it, so I'm not overly concerned about it. He's flying away from that little mountain. So he's probably over behind that other one now. We could call them UFOs. Alright, once I'm right about here, I'm going to turn in this direction. more specifically, run them right in here between this one and this one. We're going to fly right through the middle to Las Vegas. We've used about a quarter of our tank, almost a quarter tank of fuel. We've only got 24 minutes remaining before we actually reach the Las Vegas airport. The Las Vegas airport is situated fairly close to Vegas itself, so we should get some visual on Vegas. I just won't do any flybys this morning. That'll be tomorrow. But we'll be able to see some of it upon our landing. We are 55 nautical miles from Las Vegas, so I'm anticipating within another 5 miles we'll be hearing from ATIS. At that point, I will program our approach, get it set up, and we'll fly the approach, whatever initial airfix we pick. That will be an instrument landing. We probably don't need to do an instrument landing this morning. We could do a visual. The skies are clear. They could announce what runways are available, and then we could just look at it on the map and get a visual on it and land. But we'll set up an instrument procedure just because I haven't done one in a few days, and I'd like to do one again. I've been doing mostly visual stuff lately. I'm almost ready to activate my leg to Las Vegas. I'm just getting antsy, I guess, knowing it's coming up and I can feel it, and I'm ready to do it. When in reality, I still need to fly a couple more miles. I think I'll wait until right about 50 nautical miles and then go ahead and start doing it. And then about that time as well, we'll be getting ATIS, so I can do all of that perhaps in GPS at the same time. We have a ground speed of 139 knots, a true airspeed of 133 knots, and then we're showing that the plane is flying at 119 knots, 2700 RPM right at the red line. Alright, ATIS is checking in. Looks like the altimeter is 3023, and they are arriving runway 26 left. So I'm going to set the altimeter to 3023. We'll pop that out. That's not what I was going to do, but I will zoom that out to about 50 or 20 miles at least. 3023. It's going to have us closer to the ground, in which case I'm going to want to increase my altitude. 3023. We'll pull up flight plan. Activate my leg here. which changes, and then we'll set it back to nav. We are no longer flying directly to something we can hit. We're flying in between it. And while I'm in here, we'll do the procedure for runway 26 left. Select the approach. I'm going to do not ILS but RNAV for 26. There's usually one. If there's an ILS, there's usually an RNAV. Well, there's this VDM26R. I don't know how it will do in comparison. Here I am telling you there's usually an ILS. There's usually. Yes, usually, but sometimes I find unusual things as well. I could do ILS for runway 26 left, but I don't know if I would need to program the radio stack. So just to anticipate that I might have to, I'm going to get the ILS nav radio station for 2 left and have that programmed in there. And we'll switch that with the ATIS radio stack here in just a minute. So I will program ILS. And I am not as familiar with ILS landing, so bear with me if it doesn't pan out the way that I intended. I am bringing Sky Vector back over here. And we're going to look at 26, ILS 26 left. So 116.9, localizer 111.5. That's what we need is the localizer 111.5. And I also need to know what the minimums are. So ILS minimums, it looks like we'll do 2269 or 2520, doesn't matter. I'm going to do ILS, but I will kind of want it, yeah. We'll do 2200 or within that range. So Barrow. Let's see, 2269, so we can get 2260 in there. And then we'll activate this and fly it. And I like to get approach off of the screen and then be able to see the initial airfix. The other thing I would like to do now is, what was it, 111.5 for the localizer, so let's go ahead and program that in there. Oh, that's comms. 111.5. Oh, and it looks like the GPS programmed it in there for me, and I didn't notice until after I programmed it. So I'm going to turn ATIS off so we don't have to see that information up there anymore. We've got the altimeter set to 3023, and we've got our chosen runway for 26 left, and we have everything we need to know in order to land, so that information can go away. What I want to do now is come over here and look at the flight plan and see what I need to be at, what, 8? Does that say 8? I can't see it very well. If that's 6,000 or 8,000. I think it's 8,000 because the next one below it is 6,500 feet. I just want to make sure that we are at those altitudes as we're approaching those waypoints. Now I'm already below 8,000, so we're good for the time being. And this. And according to this, we're not low enough to hit anything, but it does look like we're going to be coming close. We'll be flying right over it. When I adjusted the altimeter, it did put me closer to the ground. I'm actually looking at the sky vector approach plate that we pulled up for runway 26 left, and Preno it says 8,000, and then Larry, L-A-R-R-E, it says 6,500, and then Shand 4,900. And let's compare that with these so that you can follow along. So this does coincide with what's on sky vector. 8,000 for Preno, 6,500 for LARRE, 4,900 for Shand. Relin is 3,800, and it's hard to see, but I think that is 3,800, 3,800 feet. And then after that, those gray ones, those are not showing up on my approach plate here, so I can't compare those. But all of these other numbers here, these four, matched up perfectly. Now if I were to program this same approach in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, those altitudes don't show up when you click the flight plan button on the multifunction display. They're not there at all, and that is disconcerting for me because I use that information while I'm flying. Now I can look at the approach plate and get an idea still, and then still try to do the RNAV or GPS or the ILS landing, but from my experience, it's not always worked out right, and it is a struggle. Sometimes I have to either ascend or descend and try to intercept the glide path better before I actually initiate the approach, despite the fact that I tried to approach it from the altitude indicated on the approach plate, or even below the altitude indicated on the approach plate. And in X-plane, I could turn on the approach right now. If I did an RNAV landing, I could turn on the approach right now and it would fly me right in. I don't know if doing this will work for ILS or not, so I'm going to have to pay attention to it. We're comparing apples and oranges when we talk RNAV and ILS, and then also I'm including the Microsoft Flight Simulator. But what I'm doing here is I'm comparing RNAV in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and X-plane 11. I'm saying it always works for me in X-plane 11, and it's hit or miss in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. What I have not done whatsoever is compare ILS procedures in X-plane versus Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So in that regard, I have no idea. I don't know. In Microsoft Flight Simulator, the ILS might work perfectly, and perhaps they're going for that, preferring people to do more ILS landings as opposed to the RNAV or GPS landings. I don't know what the mindset of the decision was on it. I just feel like the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is still missing features. And they'll come. Eventually, it will improve over time. X-plane 11 has been out a while, and it's had its share of updates, but it's more refined because it has been out a while. I'm not trying to sell anyone on X-plane 11 over Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. With that being said, I would say if you're indecisive, don't know which one to get, you could do like I did and get them both. And again, I still use flight gear, and I enjoy using flight gear sometimes. It doesn't feel as good. I can't do, I can't use a G1000 in it or a GTN 750. I think there are some people out there that were able to get the G1000 working, but when you look at their screenshots, it looks horrible. And I don't know how effective or how good they got it working in any case. But in X-plane 11, it works really great, and it works well enough in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 to be able to do what you need to for the most part. But if you're intending to practice instrument landings, you would be better off going with X-plane 11 over Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. But if you prefer visual flying, I would definitely say Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 over X-plane 11. And when I say visual, Not only are the graphics better to look at, but you don't have to worry about the instruments doing everything they need to because you're visually flying. I get attached to certain aircraft. So, like the one I'm using, the G1000 glass cockpit right now, I kind of prefer flying the Cessna 172 with the dials and the GTN 750. That's my preference. And then after that is flying with the G1000 glass cockpit. If I go over to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, I don't have the option, at least yet, of using the GTN 750. So, and then I don't even have a Cessna 172 that has dials. I am only, because I got the basic version. I didn't get the premium Microsoft Flight Simulator. It cost much more, and I didn't know if I was going to like it well enough to want to pay that much money for the premium to get an additional aircraft. So I don't have a Cessna that has dials in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and even if I did, I don't have the GTN 750, which is the pairing that I like. Dials with the GTN 750. I can do that in X-Plane, so I prefer that aircraft. I can't do that in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, so my only option for the Cessna in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, well, not for the Cessna in general, the Cessna 172, my only option is the G1000 glass cockpit. Now I can do the Cessna 152, but it's you only have the radio stack, and it's definitely an older model aircraft. It's still fun to fly, but I like the 172. That's what I prefer to fly. So my only option really available to me because of what I like in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 would be to use the Cessna with the G1000. Unless I could purchase another aircraft, another Cessna that has the dials, but then it would be the dials with the radio stack. Or no, maybe it might have the G530. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I don't have it in my aircraft inventory, so I can't look at it to see, but it probably has the G530 at least. The great thing about the G1000 that I'm liking is that they have this glass cockpit in the Cessna 172 and X-Plane 11, but they also have it in some of the other aircraft, including the Cirrus Vision SF50. And when I need to do a long, really long flight of several hundred miles, I'll hop over into this Vision SF50 because it's a little jet, and it's a joy to fly that little jet. But it has the G1000 glass cockpit, and I'm already familiar with its use from flying the Cessna with the G1000. So it's easy to program, use, get set up and ready to fly, and then the aircraft itself handles wonderfully. So it's not a challenge to fly any more than the Cessna is, in my opinion, despite the fact that it's considered a jet. When I do my approaches, I can do my approaches at 75 knots, 77 knots, and that's not that much faster than my approaches I'm doing in the Cessna. And then, in my experience from flight simulator airliners and jets, slowing the aircraft down after landing can be a challenge. And the Cirrus Vision SF50, not only does it not have reverse thrust, it doesn't have air brakes, but you're approaching at what, 75, 77, maybe 80 knots maximum, and it's still not a challenge to slow down at all. So it doesn't take a lot of runway to stop that aircraft. And to me, it's no more of a challenge to fly than the Cessna. That's my opinion of it anyways. So I enjoy flying it. And that's my second favorite aircraft. The Cessna is my first. Cirrus Vision SF50 is my second. And then if I have even longer flights than I would want to do in the Cirrus Vision SF50, Like if I wanted to fly all the way from, you know, the East Coast to the West Coast, I did it in the Vision, but I was kind of debating maybe I should go ahead and take the 737 because, you know, I can go a lot farther. So that's when I start thinking about the 737, when there's really, really long flights and I need a lot of fuel and I'm uncertain as to whether or not the Vision can make it. And the 737 goes faster, you know. I might fly 300 knots the entire way, whatever altitude I'm at, 300 knots. So that's faster, you know. In the Vision, I might be doing about 200 knots. I'm doing 100 miles an hour faster in the 737, longer distance, shorter times. But the 737 is just a challenge for me to remember how to start. So that's my deterrent for not flying it much or that often. Like, I don't think I have any videos out right now that have the 737, and I will eventually do one with the 737. I just have not yet. I used the Vision, the SF-50, to fly from Norfolk, KORF, to Quezon, San Diego. And it took, or I may have stopped, I think I did, stop along the way. So we did it in two 4-hour segments of flight to get to San Diego before I started touring the West Coast. Maybe when the weather warms up a little bit again, the East Coast side of things, when I fly back, I'll fly back in the 737. But by the time it warms up, I might be inclined to go somewhere else, you know, another region of the U.S. or even, you know, south of the U.S., South America, some of those places, and check them out. Not just always fly in the United States. You know, there are other things out there worth seeing. I'd like to go check them out. And I'd like to see them in both X-Plane 11 and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I was just trying to see if the V&D button would do anything for me this way. So if I'm not mistaken, since I programmed an ILS landing, the GPS on approaching the runway should switch to the CDI, the VOR1. It's tied in with nav1 radio. So it should go from magenta to green once we intercept the glide path. Or I think it's glide path when it's an RNAV landing, so it'd be glide slope in ILS. So when I'm doing an RNAV landing, this will go from white to green, and it will say GP right here, and it will be green. And the GP probably indicates glide path. So I'll be curious to see if it will switch to green and say GS for glide slope. I'll be watching for that. We're about 10 minutes away from Lari. It's 21.5 nautical miles. But we are doing our approach. Preno is our initial air fix. We're 21 miles from our initial fix. The initial fix was 8,000 feet. We're at 7,000. And from Prino to Lari would be a descent 500 feet. If we were at 8,000, it would be 1,500 feet. But since we're at 7,000, we'll be descending 500 feet. And then from Lari to Shan, we'll be descending some more. 1,600 feet, like 6,500 to 4,900. Let's have a look around. Starting to see some buildings. Trees, houses, runway here. Is that a lot of telephone? Yeah. Telephone wires. That is Vegas. I've been in many of those buildings. I have been to Vegas one time in my life. Unfortunately, we can't see it well from here, so we will have to fly to it to get a better. Is that the Luxor right there? There's an airport right there. But see, we're going to the initial airfix, and that's probably where we're going to land. But we've got to fly to the initial airfix first, get positioned, and then fly back, and we'll land on 26 left. So we'll get a better, closer look at Vegas there as we approach it. So let's zoom in here and get an idea of what we're doing. Let me make this bigger again. We're flying out to this lake that's right here in front of us, and then we're going to turn. And we'll be after we turn, basically we'll be turning left, and then we're heading right back towards Vegas. So that's all we're doing. Going out here, making a left, going back. Yeah, when I did go to Vegas years ago, I went with my wife at the time. We are now divorced, but it was a fun trip. I had a good time. We didn't do much gambling. We just did slot machines, but we did go in every casino. Neither her nor I have ever, we're not that good at cards, and neither of us have much experience gambling or anything like that. But we just wanted to go to Vegas, check it out, because neither of us had been. And it was more or less her idea. She always had the best plans. But upon the mention of Vegas, I was all for it. And then we rented a car from there, and we went out and drove to the Grand Canyon. And but before we went on our Vegas trip, I had mentioned to a friend of mine, I said, I have a feeling that Mary Ann's going to be expecting me, excuse me, I didn't mean to mention any names, but she's going to be expecting me to ask her to marry her. and I didn't want her to, I didn't want it to be like, because it was expected, I didn't want to do it. I mean, I wanted to marry her, but I wanted it to be a surprise when I proposed. I didn't want it to be something that was expected. And the reason I'm saying this is because once we got to the Grand Canyon, she made some joke when we were in the gift shop about, I guess I'll be needing to buy my own ring. So I proposed to her later when we went to the Outer Banks. Outer Banks is one of my favorite places. So when it does warm up, I might be inclined to fly around there a little bit. But the Norfolk airport that I flew out of, part of the reason for that is because Outer Banks is my favorite place, and Norfolk is right next door, very close, within flying distance, most definitely. And then I really loved California while I was there, which is the other reason why we're out here now, touring it, because it's something I've always liked. So I kind of like the East Coast to some extent, and I always liked the West Coast. But I also like seeing other areas too. I've been overseas, Bermuda, Sicily. Wouldn't mind touring some of those areas at some point. But if anybody's watching this and you're interested in me checking out a particular region, please leave a comment. Let me know. Subscribe if you haven't, so you'll be updated of the video when I make it. If there's a particular aircraft you would like to see me fly, maybe some of you would like to see me fly the Stinson. I wouldn't be so very good at it, but I would do it. Or maybe that McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom. I'm sure it would be fun, but the landing part is what I worry about. Am I going to be able to slow that aircraft down without dying? Yesterday, not on video, I was flying around the Palm Springs area, actually showing someone a few things, some comparisons between the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and the next plane, because they were trying to decide which one was right for them. And at some point, I was demonstrating how much trouble I had getting the Microsoft Flight Simulator Cessna 172 to fly to 10,000 feet. So I did it. I demonstrated it right there with that person. And then we got in X-Plane 11 and we did the same thing. And flew to 10,000 feet, which was less of an issue. Now the ceiling cap, apparently, I've looked it up since I mentioned in the video that I didn't know what the ceiling cap was for the Cessna 172, but it's about 13,000 to 14,000 feet. So I don't really understand why I'm having trouble at 10,000 feet. Maybe as you inch closer to 14,000 feet, it does get relatively more challenging, but it's a lot less challenging, a lot less of a hassle in X-Plane, although it is still a hassle to, like, you have to lower I have to lower my vertical speed so that I don't lose too much airspeed. And then sometimes you have to circle around a little bit, particularly if you're trying to get over a certain mountain or something like that. Now, I'm going to cut myself off here. Since we've hit the initial air fix, it now says 6,500, so I'm going to adjust our altitude accordingly and get it going down to 6,500. Why is it not adjusting? I'm turning the knob. Oh, it is. I'm looking at the wrong number, so excuse me for that. Alright, vertical speed, 500 feet per minute, and I'm going to pull back on the throttle some so that we don't overspeed, overstress. 2,600 RPMs. So after I did that, demonstrating the challenges of getting to 10,000 feet in the Cessnas in both of the flight simulators, X-Plane 11 and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Then I got into the Sikorsky, and I hadn't flown a helicopter in a long time. Now, I did get relatively good at it, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, but I haven't flown one since. And I'm using rudder pedals, as I do my flights. But I have a yoke here now, though, instead of a joystick. So flying the helicopter with a yoke seemed a little different. But I did it. I didn't crash. I was able to get it up. We took it up to 10,000 feet. And then I took it back to the Palm Springs airport and I landed. Now, I didn't land exactly where I would have liked, but I did land it and get it down successfully without hitting anything. And I took it up again and landed again. Took it up again and landed again. Did it a few times. I think with a little extra practice, I can get it to where I can land it where I want. Maybe at some point I could fly the helicopter around and land on one of those oil rigs that we've flown around and under. 6,500 feet, I want to look at the GPS multifunction display over here to remind myself of the next one, 3,800 feet. And I'll leave that information up for the time being. I can see PAPI lights. I can't tell whether or not I'm on the glide path or slope or, but I imagine we'll intercept that one once we get to the final airfix here, Relin. And we are coming or approaching Vegas now, so you can begin to see some of those buildings. We were better situated before, but we can actually see Mandalay Bay now and see the Egyptian thingy there, and then whatever this one is with the castle. I don't really know all the names of the buildings in Vegas. Truth be told, I'd have to look all of that up. There's a nice view of the compass. I was actually going to try to look at that thing there to the left of it. I have been up there. We didn't ride the roller coaster that's around the edges, but we did go up in there. I don't know if it was just more than we wanted to pay or why we didn't do it. I don't know. 3,800. I'm going to descend to 3,800. Vertical speed. I'll be doing 1,000 feet and watching or pulling back on the throttle. Let's not overspeed too much. Let's do 2,300 RPMs like that. And then the next one, let's look at the multifunction display. Well, the next one is 3,800, so we'll be at the assigned altitude. So what I'll be watching when we hit Relin then is to see this magenta turn green and that we are intercepting the glide slope for the ILS landing. If not, then I will be manually landing the aircraft. I'm going to go ahead and extend some flaps. I know we're about 120 miles per hour, but I don't think the first stage of flap is going to break us. So we'll do it. Now we're down to 2,200 RPMs. But the flaps will help increase the drag as we're descending, and then once I approach 3,800 feet, I'm going to do this stage 2 of flaps and get the aircraft set up and ready for what I want to do for the final approach. We'll go ahead and turn the taxi and landing lights on. And what I'll do is, I think I'll do an external view and just let you see. I use buttons that I have on my yoke, but I could just use the switches that are in there, and I can show you those. And the switches are right here. All I did was toggle those with the buttons. (4,800 to 3,800). We are 3.7. No, we are heading towards, Relin. 3.5 nautical miles from. We need to be at 3,800 by the time we get to Relin, and we will be. There's no issue there. Happy lights look like they're all red, but we are still at a distance out. Maybe it's kind of hazy. I can't see very well. Like a ground fog or something. It is still morning time. It looks like it's 8:39 there right now. And this is not real world time either. This is just time that I set in the settings before initiating the flight. It would probably still be dark out there right now. It's still dark here in North Carolina, so it's definitely dark out there in California. Alright, I'm going to get us back up to 2100 RPMs. I'm going to think about stage 2 of these flaps. We're at 80 knots. 1.6 miles from Relin. So once I hit Relin, and we did switch, and we do have glide slope. So we have intercepted, and it looks like in 1.4 miles we'll begin our descent, but I'll be watching for that. So if this yellow dot, when it's here, if it goes, if we end up flying above it, we haven't intercepted it yet, but once we intercept it, if that thing changes, I'll manually fly the aircraft in. If I see us descend, I'll leave it be. I'm just going to be watching it, be mindful of it. Make it a successful landing. We're slowing down, so I'm going to give it some more RPMs here. Once the descent begins, I'll do the final step of flaps. Let's have an external look. We have 2 steps of flaps already out. And there's one final third step for the ATIS. I don't need it. We have an 8-mile-an-hour headwind, so basically no winds. Alright, we are descending. So, third and final step of flaps now. And then I'm going to get the airspeed down to about 60 knots prior to our landing. Let's see what 1950 RPMs does for us as far as slowing the aircraft down. Well, it's going below 1950. Leave it for now. Alright. 2000 RPMs. 1980. That's 62 knots. I'm good with that. Our angle looks good. I can see the PAPI lights. And hanging out with the aircraft. Let's have a look at Vegas from the outside. So tomorrow we'll be flying around this area. I'll probably make a couple of rounds around it, maybe in and through and around some of the buildings if I feel like stunting a little bit, or I may just fly the perimeter. You see something cool and interesting, we'll fly out to it, have a look at it. Wouldn't mind getting a close-up or a screenshot of that guy there, that Egyptian fella. Alright, now let me watch what I'm doing here for my approach. I'm going to slow it back to 1950 RPMs. I like to have the aircraft right around stall speed by the time I land. Other people like to give it more power. I know I can give it more power by having my hand on the throttle at any time. So even if it's at stall speed, I can, just give it full throttle and go if I needed to. So I don't take my hand off the throttle once I get close enough to the runway. We have the baro set at 22. 60, so I'll be taking over the remainder of the flight here shortly. We're at 2,900 feet. So at 2260, I'll be disengaging the autopilot and flying the rest of the way in. Nice view of the flaps, but I was kind of wanting to see what it looked like outside the window there. As you can see, the 2 white, 2 red on the pack of lights for both the right and the left. We chose 2.6 left. So ILS is taking us into 2.6 left. I'm doing 1900 RPMs now, and I don't have my hands on the yoke yet because we're not quite at 2200 feet. Seems like we're coming in a little high. I would probably choose to be a little lower if I were flying it myself, but ILS knows best. There's a bus. Well, he turned and I don't see. Well, I don't know that he turned. He just kind of merged with the other traffic and went away. Either that or he's the one in the front there now. So now Pappy has us showing low. I am putting my hands on the yoke and I'm about ready to disengage the autopilot. I've also got my right hand on the throttle. Should be announcing minimums here any minute. I didn't hear it, so I'm disengaging it now. I might have my volume set too low. I'm pulling up with the yoke now, and I'm pulling back on the throttle some to reduce airspeed and increase drag. And we touched down. It seemed like a gentle touchdown. And one of the things I typically do is determine beforehand which way I need to turn off the runway, but I did not pay attention to that. But it looks like I can make a right-hand turn here coming up. I always profess to not be a very good taxier. I do my best, but there are times when I end up in the dirt. Like the other day at Edwards Air Force Base. I thought it was a turn off, and it wasn't. Like this looks like a turn off to me, but what do I do? Make a hard right? It's probably an on-ramp for the runway, and here I am using it as an exit. See, like I said, I'm not the best taxi. I do my best, but I still need work. A bunch of FedEx planes, or what appears to be FedEx. I think they say regex in real life. I mean, not in real life, but in X-Plane 11. Whatever's real for X-Plane 11, they say regex. And I don't know. I'm just heading towards that regex plane and that building that's over there, and where that truck is. There's some more to my left here too. I don't have good peripheral vision, and I'm going to speed up to go across this runway. I should be looking both ways, but I'm not. If I had VR, it'd be easy to just turn my head left and right. And I'm hitting the brakes again because I increased my speed going across the runway. Squelching my brakes, and it looks like there's an open terminal over there, so I'm going to park there. And sometimes what happens is I'll park there and I'll do the replay for the landing. And then when I come back, there's an aircraft there. So I apologize if that happens. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to take my chances. It is pretty busy in this area, so there's a good chance there's going to be an aircraft there when we come back. There's a terminal way over there that's less likely to be used. Maybe I should choose that. Just a little further taxi. We've already been an hour and 46 minutes. What's another 2 minutes? The other thing I have issue with is the trucks that drive around. Sometimes, I don't know. I'm having a hard time anticipating where they're going to go, and then at times they'll just move around like squirrels. Like they can't decide which way they want to go, and I'll be dodging and weaving to get around them. I've got an interesting video with my Cirrus Vision SF50 where I did a little dance with a fuel truck. And I was not intending to, but yeah, I would go left, he would go right. I would go right, he would go left, and it just, just the way. But he was backing up, so him going the opposite direction was going in the same direction that I turned. Oh, look, truck just pulling right out in front of me there. But yeah, it's a interesting video if you get the opportunity to see it. So I'm going to pull up to these, looks like 2 terminals, and I'm not even approaching it from the right direction. I'm just going to pull up close to it, call it a day. We'll get on this yellow line. How about that? Killing the engines right about now, and let it coast to a stop. I don't know if I'm on the yellow line or not. It's okay. I don't aim for perfection all the time. Hitting the brakes, going to turn the aircraft off, and then we'll do replay. One more thing here. Flaps come up. Alright, now we'll do the replay. Get an external view here. That was a rather long taxi, so I don't know how far I need to back it up. We'll just do it there. I try to aim for smooth landings. So with that, I do try to have the aircraft right near or at stall speed on landing. So typically what I do is a small flare, and while I flare, I just throttle back. If it feels like it's going to drop and hit the ground, I drop my nose down a little bit. But I don't know, I think for the most part I mostly just do smooth landings. It's more harder of a challenge to try to explain. I mean, I do slowly throttle back and nose up, but you've also kind of got to do it at the right time, and that's the harder part to explain. Where you're looking at on the runway, I think I'm using my peripheral vision more. I have my eyes forward, but I'm using my peripheral vision and I'm watching the parallel lines as they're getting bigger, and as they're where I think they need to be visually or mentally. At that point is when I nose up and throttle back. So my landings are based on feel, visual, but also based on how I feel about it as I'm doing it. It's a mental process, my landing, not a procedure. So you can hear the engines winding down and me moving up at the same time. And me being on the line like that, I do shoot for that, but it's not my primary goal. I just want to get on the ground safely. Being lined up perfectly, that's an added benefit, I guess. I would not say I'm a good lander. I try to improve every time. I've had some rough, challenging landings. I've got some, when I do the real world weather and the winds are just blowing and the nose is going crazy and trying to keep it lined up with the runway, and then just, you know, feeling like the wind is just going to blow you this way and that, and you just kind of slam down because at the last minute the wind hits you just right, and you know, boom. Well, I've had some doozies, but I haven't collapsed the landing gear yet, but I used to. In Microsoft Flight Simulator 2002, I collapsed the landing gear a lot whenever I would fly the 747. But eventually I got to where I understood vertical speed and approach speeds. And after much practice, I got to the point where I could land the 747. I understood what the principles of, you know, gravity and weight and speed and needing to be at the right angle. I think learning to fly or land the 747 is what makes it so easy now to actually fly the Cessna. Like, now I have crashed the Cessna. I don't want to imply that I never have crashed, but I have. I flew, I was flying to Norfolk, I think, and it was raining, and it iced over, and I had no way to de-ice it, and I started losing power, and I crashed. And the video's out there for that. I don't know the actual name of it, but it does have the word crash in the title. And then I crashed when I was trying to fly underneath the oil rig in the San Diego area. My first attempt at that, I failed, you know. I successfully flew under the Coronado Bridge, which I was like just inches from the water, but my landing gear hit the water when I was trying to fly under the oil rig, and that was the end of it for me. I had to reset the flight, and we went and we looked at a ship, did a flyby a ship, and then I took another notion to try one more time to get it under the oil rig, because I really thought I could do it. It was just a matter of not getting too low, not getting those landing gear in the water. So I did it again, and on the second try, it worked. That video's out there as well if you'd like to see it. I think after the end of this video, I have the playlist for touring San Diego, or touring the West Coast rather. So the videos, not the one of the crash, but the video of me going under the Coronado Bridge and going under the oil rig, they're in the touring playlist. So if you'd like to check those out, have a look. Just click the link. It'll be on the right hand side once I get to the last few minutes of the video. Did I say right hand or left hand? Should be on the left hand side if I didn't say left hand. That'll be the playlist. And there's the regex over there. Let me change the view so you can see that it says regex. No, it says FedEx. Okay, well that's odd. The other day I was looking at something that said regex. So what's the difference between regex and FedEx then? Does anybody know? Because I don't, without looking it up. So I probably should be closer up here, but I killed the engines and just kind of coasted to a stop. And I'll be turning all the lights off, and then the flaps should be coming up here in a minute. Anyways, this was a little bit of a longer flight. It's about almost nearly 2 hours, an hour and 55 minutes. But thank you for flying with me, and hope you all have a good day.